Hello, patrons and channel members. Welcome to the supporter vlog for June 2022. This is going to be a exciting one in not a fun way, but man, do I got a story for you, and it's about the kids and their school. We're going to dive into that, but before I do, this week is the launch of Diablo Immortal, as of technically the day this is going up, because it's possible to get early access to the game, potentially, depending on how the App Store and Google Play Store propagate the game. But as for the PC version, it goes live on the 2nd, just like it was planned to. And I'm excited. I'm super excited. But I'm going to miss out on that early access for the day this is going up, because I'll be potentially going to Busch Gardens. In fact, let me double check that, because it was really based on the weather. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to be going, because it's only a 40% chance to rain. If you don't know what Busch Gardens is it's a theme park that's owned by like the SeaWorld parks, and it is off in Tampa, so it's about a 2-hour drive from where we're at in Orlando. And yeah, we're going to be taking the kids there. You might be like, Zen, why? You knew the game was coming out for Immortal, and to potentially get early access to it. So why are you leaving on the day that you might get early access? Well, because we've decided to reward the kids for standing up and doing what is right and being punished for it. But again, I will get to that in a moment. A little bit of a teaser there, I guess. So let's talk about some channel stuff. Let's talk about games and what's going on the channel and all that stuff. First and foremost, I finished Jedi Fallen Order, and oh my goodness, the end of that game was so incredible. If you've managed to not see the end of that game or be spoiled on it, definitely go watch like the last episode or the last 2 episodes. That was a really fun journey. I loved it, and I loved that nobody spoiled it for me too, and everybody was shocked that I had not been spoiled on the end of that game, and it was so good. And the fact that we're now leading into Obi-Wan, the TV series, and the first 2 episodes of that went out this last week, and I watched those, and fantastic. For whatever reason, the Star Wars shows just can't do chase scenes. They look so bad, especially when it's a little girl running away from, grown men in a forest. It just looks like they're playing a game as opposed to actually like chasing her down and trying to. Anyways, it's bad, and it wasn't that part of the show wasn't great, but everything else was fantastic. And then they revealed at the Star Wars Celebration Jedi Survivor, which is the follow-up to Fallen Order, and I can't wait for that. It's gonna be so good. It's just like these games. I think Fallen Order has quickly become one of my favorite games of all time. I'm trying to, think about it, stew on it, figure out where it lands on my top list, but I'm pretty sure it's in the top 5 somewhere. Like, that game ended up being incredible, which is funny to say because I hate the Dark Souls-y type games, at least the Souls-like games. Even though I think Bloodborne would probably be more up my alley, I just haven't played it. I don't have a PlayStation to download and play it. So if it ever came to PC, I'd probably jump in and try it out. But like Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, those games just never really, I tried them and they just didn't really click with me. Whereas I think Fallen Order clicked because it has subject matter that I'm used to, or that I'm really interested in, which meant that I could kind of get over their punishing combat system, which actually ended up being really fun to master throughout that game. And by the end of it, I felt like a master, and that's part of the reward there. I'm still kind of half and half about whether I'm going to pick up Elden Ring and try that out. We'll see. I'm going to be so busy now that Immortal's coming out, because I need to make a bunch of videos on this game, apparently. So I put out a couple videos this last week getting prepped for launch, whether it be some news about, like the early access stuff or the launch news, which we got from the devs, and then I was able to kind of propagate that. And then last night, I put up a guide for leveling quickly, because a lot of people who are jumping into the game don't know yet that the battle pass gives you a bunch of experience points every time you rank it up one. So, focusing that down and getting a bunch of XP out of that is the quickest way to level in that game for sure. And you have to do the main story. There's no way around it. So you may as well do that too. And there's like all these other tips that I gave. But I wasn't expecting that video to get 9,000 views within the first 12 hours. And so it's doing really well at the moment. And it's just trucking on, and I've gained a bunch of subscribers from it. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to say this now. If you happen to be one of the people who became a channel member or a patron from that, then cool. Hey, welcome. But yeah, that video did super duper well. I'm happy about that. And it's clear that I need to utilize the expertise that I have from playing so much Immortal to create some content that is going to continue to draw more people in. So this was already the plan. We talked about this like what, back in February or January, that when the game came out, we're going to go pretty hardcore on it. And that's going to be the case. So I'm going to end up making a bunch of videos. I might stream on Thursday. We'll see. I kind of got a lot going on at the moment. So yeah, we'll see about that. But the kids are about to be gone for 2 weeks. So it's just going to be nice to be able to sit down and play the game and get some of that out of the way. Although I do have a lot of other work to do, obviously, with 3D printing stuff. I'll get to that in just a moment. But as far as video games, you know, we finished Fallen Order. Diablo Immortal is coming out, so I'm going to focus pretty hard on that. We've got Terraria that I wrapped up. I just didn't have the time to sit down and kill that final boss in the Thorium mod until this last week. So I managed to do that. Feel pretty good about it. I think the video that's going to go up for this day that this is going up, so on the 1st, is potentially going to be the mod demo for Starlight River, which is a Terraria mod that is so freaking good. It's like a whole different game. It's like, it's Terraria. You look at it, you're like, that resembles Terraria, but then you're like looking at all the items and stuff and the way that they've developed it, and it's just incredible. The team behind that mod are doing such a good job, and I can't wait for the full thing to come out. So I'm gonna put the playthroughs that I did of that up, I think, on the 1st. And then, man, this last month I've also had a bunch of first impressions able to come out. Like I said in the last one, I have just like this backlog of games that I'm trying to work my way through to get first impressions up. Witch in the Woods, Little Witch in the Woods, I think is what it was. It's like the first real game that I hated that I've done recently. But you know, honestly, with all of the first impressions that I've done, if that's the first one that I'm like, I hate this, then that's pretty good ratio. So I'm looking at the playlist for the first impression stuff. Man, we had some bangers on there so far, but I think the one that I've done that was a first impressions and is probably going to go down as the only game in this playlist that ever goes over an hour is Encased, which was that like a post-apocalyptic, it had a really cool premise behind it. It was a post-apocalyptic tactics RPG, kind of like Wasteland and stuff like that, that had such a cool premise to it. And I was so in love with the idea behind it and everything going into it. And then it just had the most annoying like tutorial system ever. And they just like really babied you through it, and it just wasn't good. So that is the only out of like 20 videos, that's the only other one that I've not liked. And even then, I was liking the game. I think if I put more time into that game, I would continue to like it. It's just that that opening was really rough. But hey, that's what the first impressions are for, right? To go in and give you first impressions on a game. Honestly, I'm okay with the game like taking 20 to 30 minutes to kind of start ramping up. But at that point, you should start feeling like, oh, okay, I'm starting to get into this. I'm starting to understand what's going on here. Or maybe it's a hot start and they just go in guns blazing, like right off the bat. Like games do that all the time. Really great games do that all the time. And I think that those kind of games are a bunch of fun, but you know, indie games, which is typically what I'm covering on the first impressions, don't do that. They're a little bit more of a slow roll, and that's totally fine. But it's really important to get those like first impressions super good on a game, and that's what that series is for. As for the impressions series, which is a little bit more in depth, obviously I'm gonna be having a Diablo Immortal one coming out, which is gonna encapsulate all of my thoughts on it over the last few years of that game. And then I'm still working on Dune Spice Wars. I just have not had the time to really sit down and play it, unfortunately. Like, it's such a sad state of affairs in my house at the moment where I'm just like, Man, I wish I could be playing video games right now, and I can't. I am working my butt off. I'm staying up till like 4 o'clock in the morning on some of these days. And you might be like, oh, that sucks. You should really kind of get a better work-life balance. And to that, I agree. But at the same time, I'm really loving what I'm doing between the Etsy stuff and running YouTube and just everything going on. It's been fantastic. And, you know, to that end, the Etsy stuff is doing so well that I feel like I can put the time into that. Again, we'll get to there in a moment. For other games, there's a rumor that coming up in June here at the Xbox Bethesda Activision Blizzard showcase that they're doing, that there's potentially going to be some Diablo 4 news, potentially a release date, which I am not surprised by, because you got to remember they pushed. Oh, I got to be really careful about what I say. Okay, so they pushed the release date back, and we had news of that it got delayed, and that was like last year, I think, sometime in 2021. Or maybe it was at the beginning of this year. It was sometime like recently. They were like, yeah, we're delaying the game. But, you know, that doesn't mean that they're delaying the game years. They're just delaying the game from they had a date that they had set, and then they're like, okay, well, we don't think we can meet that date at the quality of you know, standard that we want to. So let's push it back a little bit. And that's what they've done. So I'm not really surprised that they're getting ready to announce a date. I'm excited to find out what it is. I don't know what it is. But I think that game is a lot closer than people seem to think, and we're not going to have to wait super long for that game to come out. And the best part is Immortal is going to prep people for Diablo 4 in a really good way, because the way the world works in Diablo 4, it is far more open. It is like a giant open world in a lot of senses, as opposed to Diablo 4, which has these zones. Immortal has the zones. Diablo 4 also has zones, but it's just like so much more expansive. It's really hard to describe. But the thing is, people are going to play Immortal, and they're going to kind of get used to this cool open world where you're seeing other players, and they're going to jump into Diablo 4 and be like, oh, this feels familiar, and I think it's going to really stick with people. I'm excited to get my hands on that game. Man, if they're getting ready to announce a release date, I wouldn't be surprised that I'm going to get my hands on that game fairly soon, in that case, between closed testing that nobody knows about, and then the open testing that we can start talking about it. And I'm excited for that. So yeah, I don't really know what other games I'm going to do throughout the summer. I'm going to do some more modded Terraria for sure. I'm going to finish up Mass Effect here within the next month. It really depends on Immortal stuff, honestly. And then, yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with just kind of going into the fall fresh and ready to jump into new games. Like, I was ready to go into late fall with an available spot on the channel to do Starfield, but that got delayed too. So things are going to be kind of packed at the beginning of next year, I think, just because of all these delays that are ending up happening. And you know, you got Starfield, and there was another one that I'm trying to think of that got delayed into the beginning, or the first half of 2023. So I just got to keep my ears open for that. Jedi Survivor is coming out then too. So I think the beginning of next year is going to be slammed. So I got to make sure I go out of winter having quite a bit of space open on the channel. So I'm not going to commit to any like super long playthroughs. Next year is also Baldur's Gate 3. So yeah, we're going to have a really banger of a year next year. It's just this one is kind of let's do little things, right? Let's grow the channel doing Immortal stuff and doing more first impressions. Like, that's working out really well for me, and you know, just kind of doing what I feel like I want to do and having fun doing it while also growing the channel a bunch, you know, in the sense of Immortal. Plus the first impression stuff also helps a lot with that too. So yeah, don't know what I'm going to do this summer outside of Immortal and some more Terraria. We'll find out. If you have any suggestions for games that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, let me know so I can put it on my radar and start looking into it. I've been talking a lot about Etsy the past couple videos for these, so I'm not going to touch too long on it, but I will say that this for May, I made even more money than I did in April, and it is doing so good. And then Etsy just made like a fantastic change for me, which is really nice. They made it so the words in your description count for search engine optimization based on how they relate to your title and tags and your actual item. And then obviously if you have all of those like dialed in, what the result is that you'll pop up on Etsy searches a lot more. Well, I already had that dialed in because that's the best practice to do it. It's like repeating words in your description from your title. So like, let's say it was a rogue character, or actually here's a better example. Let's say it was a cat character, because I'll talk about that in a second. And in D&D, the cat race is called the Tabaxi, and it's a fairly popular race. I mean, people like playing as cats. Like the feline aspect of being able to be like really agile is very popular for rogues, bards, and stuff like that. So totally makes a lot of sense, right? People love the Tabaxi, and you can make like a cheetah kind of character or a tiger, like that one that I had shown that I painted for somebody who was making it as a rogue. Like that stuff is super cool. So let's say I have a listing, which I do, of these cat people. The cat people from Broken Anvil are called Meowza, which is really funny to me, but they're really cool. And so I have it in the title, like it's a Tabaxi. It's, Tabaxi, D&D mini, 3D printed, like all this stuff, rogue, bard. You kind of put some keywords in there. And then you repeat those in a natural way, as if you're like writing sentences out in the description. Like this Tabaxi mini from Broken Anvil, right? So you're hitting two keywords there, Broken Anvil and Tabaxi. It's, perfect for a rogue character or a bard or a fighter. And you're putting those because those are in your title. Well, now, while that was really good to show up on Google search results, which I was getting a lot of traffic from, now it also improves my search results in Etsy, and I have seen a pretty sizable increase in traffic, which has meant that I've seen a pretty sizable increase in sales, and I've just been slammed, which is nice. And there's a lot of orders going through, and I'm getting a lot better at what I'm doing. And I got like a little label maker, and this thing's really funny. It looks like I don't know. It looks like a feminine product, but it's just kind of like the size of your hand. And if I turn it on, it makes like a really funny, just like a nice little ping. I don't know how well that came through. Anyways, this thing is super cute. Just turn it back off, and it connects to my phone, and I could just like type in, what I want to have on the label, and it like prints off like a little the label that I can put on packages for like. I have like, I put my minis wrapped in bubble wrap in like a little bag, and not like a shopping bag, but kind of like a sandwich bag or like sorting bags. And you put like a couple different minis in the bags because it kind of keeps it together. You don't have to tape the bubble wrap at that point, which you don't want to do on minis because then you have to pull the tape off or cut it. And that gets weird for unpackaging, and people are able to break their minis just by trying to unpackage it instead. So I just wrap it up, put it in the bag with several other minis in there and their bases all wrapped in bubble wrap. And on the bag itself, I just label it what's in there. And they're able to figure it out. It's not a complicated process. So that actually saves a lot of time, because before I was printing that out and cutting it out and sticking them with tape onto the individual rolled up pieces of bubble wrap and everything. It was taking so much time. My next step really is to get a label printer as well, because I'm printing those out on my printer, which is taking up ink. But we have a bunch of ink because like 2 years ago, I bought a huge pack of it because it was like super sale. So it's funny how that is paying off at this point. But yeah, so I'm printing them out and cutting them out by hand and taping them onto the box. And that takes time. And all of that time is digging into my time and is making it more busy for me. Whereas if I just had a label printer, which is like $80 or something like that, like a good one, it prints thermal, so you don't have to worry about ink, and then you just get the labels for it. You just rip it off and throw it on the box, and you're done, as opposed to having to cut it out and tape it on. And it's just it's a process doing it the way that I'm doing it now, but it's just the way that I have to do it until I invest a little bit more money. But on top of that, I just became a merchant so I've been doing Broken Anvil miniatures, which is a brand of miniatures, but I just became a merchant for Cast in Play, which is another amazing company, and I'm looking to become a merchant for like one or two others, but I'm keeping my eye on their Patreons because their merchant tiers are filled up. They were for cast and play as well, and I just happened to look one day and there was one available, and I was like, boop, and I got it. Which means that I can now sell those miniatures too. I'm not just limited to, I'm like over here looking to make sure the one that I want is not currently available either. But yeah, I could sell their miniatures, so I'm going to be putting those up on the shop here within the next week. And it's been nice. Like, I'm getting so much traffic from the stuff. I'm getting a lot of sales, and I have nothing but 5-star reviews, and these reviews are like massively outnumbering other shops for the amount of reviews they have, because I put a little card. I have like a business card that I put in. It's got my Beholder tabletop logo, and it's got like my Instagram link, and then on the back it has a coupon code that expires going up to the next month. So like, say I printed a bunch out at the beginning of May, they expire at the end of June, so people have enough time to, you know, come back to the shop. But on it says like, hey, you know, your review, your honest review means a lot to us, or something like that, which means that people think about it and they go, oh, these are really good quality, and then they go and review, and it helps out a lot. Actually, it's really nice. So packing that in with all the goodies, and I always give a free mini away in all of my purchases, even though I don't advertise that because I don't want it to become like a thing that I'm bound to. It just happens to be something that I'm doing right now. Yeah, it's been going really good, to the point where because of this new thing that I became a merchant of, I have a bunch of like dungeon tiles and whatnot that I can print and sell from them on a regular basis. But I don't want to do that with resin, because resin is expensive, and doing dungeon tiles with resin, in my experience, which I was experimenting with this last couple months, it's just kind of finicky and annoying. And I wouldn't want to sell that as a resin product because of how annoying it is and how wasteful it is of a lot of resin, because you get resin trapped in like the different holes and whatnot. It's hard to clean out. So I just pre-ordered a Neptune 3 from OSWguild, which is like your standard, what people think of when they think of 3D printing, which is the nozzle that spits out the plastic, and it, you know, it's got like a armature that is like printing it out like as it goes. So I ordered one of those, completely on, you know, funds that I've made from Etsy, which is great. Like, it's already paid for it, and that will allow me to sell even more stuff. And now I have multiple ways of printing things that, you know, it expands the business. And I recently picked up some like weird little potion bottles as an experiment to see if I could make potions for D&D. So basically it's like a glass vial, and, you know, a basic healing potion in D&D heals for 2d4 plus 2. So you roll 2 4-sided dice, and you add the number together, and then you add 2. So what you do for like these little, I don't know, tchotchkes or whatever you want to call them, they're like fun D&D things, like accessories, is instead of having to remember that number, because you already are remembering a bunch of stuff as a player and as a dungeon master, you just hand out like literal potions to people. So when they loot a potion, you have one of these that has 2d4 in it, and on the tag it says, you know, lesser healing potion, 2d4 plus 2. Then they look at it, they pop it open, and they grab the dice and they roll those dice, and it's like they're consuming it. It's like a kind of a really cool thing. So I want to start making my own dice, and that's a whole different kind of process of learning how to make molds and cast resin and do like cool like glitter stuff in them, or designs, or I saw this really cool dice on, you know what, I need to make a mark, which is going to remind me to put a picture in of this. I saw a really cool dice on Reddit that someone did of a diorama. It's a miniature diorama that they painted of a spider in its den, and then they cast it in a dice, and it looks so freaking cool. And this is what I have in mind for like custom dice. And fortunately, stuff like this, it takes time to make, but you make it as a physical item, and you say, we've got 10 of these, and then when they're gone, right? So it's kind of like a first come, first serve. You buy these really cool dice, and yeah, they sell for a lot too. Dice, for whatever reason, D&D people love spending money on dice, like cool dice that nobody else has. So stuff like this, where it's got like a character in it, or some kind of like creature, like that is so freaking cool, and would absolutely 100% sell very, very well. So like this is the kind of stuff that I'm planning out. And at this point, I'm also planning this stuff with my wife because I'm like, we could do this. Like you could learn how to do the modeling, or not the modeling, but the setting the molds and putting the resin in, and I could do the painting of the diorama and get that set in there, and then bam, we've got like 10 sets of dice that we could sell for $100 each. And it's really, really cool how you can make this stuff and just sell it online to people across the world. I know that I said I wasn't going to be talking for long about this, but then I got carried away. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Anyway, so that stuff's going really well, and I'm really happy with it. But let's move on to the main part of this vlog, which is talk about my kids and their school. So we had moved, if you'll recall, we had moved to Orlando from Port St. Lucie, which is about a 2-hour drive from the East Coast down near like Fort Lauderdale, of Florida, all the way up to the center, like the dead center of Florida, where Orlando is. We had moved here because, well, we needed to find a place to live, and then we happened to find this really great house, which has been super great to us, and I'm going to be really sad to leave it. But at the same time, we are also moving up here for the school, because there was this cool school that we wanted the kids to go to. It's a private school that we have full scholarships for the kids for, and the idea behind it, just to recap you, is it's a school in which they let the kids do their own learning. It's like it's at their pace. There is no like curriculum necessarily. Like they do these things every session. I say quote unquote session. It's like for like 4 to 5 weeks they do a thing. So like, for example, back in the fall they did like a oh gosh, what's it called? Like a fair, like crap, I'm forgetting what it's called, but basically a business fair where they get things together. They come up with their own business and they go and sell things at I guess at that point it was some parade here in the town that we live in. What it wasn't. It must have been New Year's. No, it wasn't New Year's. It was something. It was some random parade that they did here that the kids got to go sell things at. And that's all kid driven. They come up with the idea. They go and research everything. And the school actively discourages them from asking the guides. They're not even called teachers. They're called guides to go and learn stuff on their own. And the concept is good and the concept is really interesting, but in actuality, this school has absolutely failed 100% in the execution of that idea. And what we have discovered is that the people who run the school, it's a husband and wife, it's a very small school, they seem to have come up with, because the idea of the school is from like a chain of these kind of schools, so they have to get permission to become one of these schools, and they have to get like accredited through the system. But what we have discovered is that these two owners who are running the school seem to have thought that they found a really lazy way of running a school with incredibly low overhead, so they can take all that money that they're getting from scholarships or people paying to go to this private school, and are using it for like extravagant trips and not for the school itself, even though school supplies are like at a premium at this school. Like you cannot, like the kids, if they say want a cup or want a fork because maybe they forgot a fork at home and they were gonna, or like a spoon or something, they literally have to pay money that they earn in the school called Lion Bucks to buy those, instead of just being like, yeah, here's a spoon. And it's like, but we're literally paying you for the kids to go to the school. Why do they have to pay for random supplies like this? Like, that's not how this works. But to make things worse, over this last year, since basically the kids got into school from day one, there was this bully, and he was being incredibly rude to not only our kids, but a bunch of the other kids, and they've all complained. And the thing with this school is when you join the school, you don't get to join as a kid. You go in for a test day where you're there as if you're just another student, but the other kids decide whether or not you're allowed to join the school. It's a committee thing from the kids themselves. They say, yes, this kid is cool, they get to join the school or whatever. Our kids obviously got in, so nothing no issue there, but that'll come up in just a moment. But this kid has been such an issue, and the things that he has said to our kids or other kids that we are, friends of their parents, and that we hear about, like, it's just totally really, really there's no excuse for the things that he's saying and getting away with, and the way that he's treating people and getting away with at this school, especially because they have a fairly, or at least they advertise that they have a fairly strict discipline system for taking care of bullies and whatnot. But they have just completely let this kid run wild and just be a massive bully to everybody else in the school, to the point of like causing physical harm, or what ended up breaking the camel's back for us being like, we're taking the kids out of the school. More on that in a minute. Is our youngest, who is, goodness, how old is she now? Because their birthdays were she's 6. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's 6, but we were gonna, well, actually, I say we, but my wife was dropping her off at school one morning, and the bully happened to be the kid greeting all of the other kids out. There were no adults around. There's never ever been adults around outside, which is already a problem, because someone could literally just drive up and take a kid and nobody would ever know. That's a whole other different issue I'm not going to go into here, but that goes into like school security on that, which the school has 0. And yeah, he was outside and she was just like terrified. She's like, I don't want to get out of the car because he's going to force me to shake his hand. I don't want him to touch me. Like that was her thing. And, with all due respect to my wife, like she handled it. Actually, that's not the way to say that. All credit to my wife. There we go. She handled it perfectly. She was just like, no, you don't have to touch him. Like, if he tries to tell you that you have to shake his hand, just tell him no. Like, you don't get to touch me, and I don't want you to touch me. That's not how this works. So she got out of the car reluctantly and started heading into class. And this kid came over and put his hand in her face and was forcing her to try to shake his hand. And she cowered away and she started crying and said, no, like, I'm not going to do this. And her older sister came to the rescue and just basically was like, no, like, this isn't going to happen. And my wife was in the middle of getting out of the car to start yelling at this kid, get the hell away from our kids, when finally he backed off and went away. Turns out he went and told the owner of the school, who we've learned is an absolute dickbag, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say, pardon the French, but that is exactly what he is. He's a giant bag of dicks. Went and told him and was trying to get our kids in trouble, to be like, they wouldn't shake my hand, and our kids were going to get in trouble for that. And we're like, what in the hell? Like, how is this even a thing? Like, that doesn't logically make any sense, but that's what they were going to follow through with. So the kids, I picked them up that day, and they were like, Chris, like, what are we going to do? Like, this kid is such a problem, and the school hasn't ever taken care of it. And just as a, quick side note, my wife and I have been trying to contact the school about this since the beginning of the school year last year. So since October, August, like around there, being like, there's this bully, and they've constantly denied it. Like, this kid is not a bully. Nobody says he's a bully, but my wife and I will talk to other parents, and they'll be like, oh yeah, that kid's absolutely a bully. Our kids are always crying and coming home and being like, he's so mean to us, and he hurt us or whatever. And so the school is like actively denying it. So a year goes by, our school year goes by. We're at this point, and my kids are just fed up. They're like, Chris, what do we do? Like, we can't. No, we come to the teachers or the guides and we say like what's going on, and he never gets in trouble, and he's so good at talking himself out of being in trouble. Like, he always manages to convince the guides and the teachers that he's the innocent one and the other people are actually the guilty people. And why would my kids have any reason to lie about this? So I absolutely 100% trust them. Plus the fact that they are like pleading with me, like, what do we do? And eventually they came to the conclusion that, well, we have the ability to vote kids in. We should have the ability to vote kids out, right? So they decided they wanted to write a petition. Now, remember, the two kids who are doing this are 9 and 10 years old. And they're like, we need to write a petition to get this kid kicked out of the school, because if we can get all of the other students to say, yes, he is bullying for these reasons, like they literally took the initiative, which is perfect because that's kind of what we've been hoping the school could teach them. They took the initiative. They looked up how to write a petition. They did all of this stuff. and they wrote it themselves, like no joke. They wrote up a petition of like, this kid has been doing all of these things. They listed them out. They said the school hasn't followed through. They haven't done, what they said they should do in these situations. So we are, taking the matters within our own hands, which is what we're encouraged to do from the school. And we're writing this petition. Will you sign it? Like, and if we get enough signatures, we'll take it to the owner of the school and be like, hey, this is what's going on. All of us want these kids kicked out. So the oldest, he gets to school and he starts getting signatures, and he gets quite a few signatures, including the owner's son, right? The owner's son. Remember, we've constantly been getting messages back saying, no, this bully doesn't exist. You guys are making this up. It's not a problem. And then in some emails, he's like, yeah, this kid has some problems and we need to work through with him. So like sometimes he acknowledges it and other times he doesn't. It's just like a weird situation, which we can only assume the reason that this kid is somehow flying under the radar and getting away with all of this is because, their parents are friends with the owners of the school, and that's just how it works. So what happens is, my oldest, he goes and gets a bunch of signatures, right? And one of the guides is like, what do you got there? Because, they're like, what's going on? And reads it and takes it to the owner. And the owner angrily goes and asks my oldest, like, what's going on? And he just explains it like, hey, we wrote this petition because we're tired of this kid. We're tired of what he's doing, and you guys aren't doing anything about it. So we're going to do something about it. And he says, okay, well, is there another one of these petitions? Is this the only one? And he says, like, no, my sister has it. So he stomps on over to the other class where his sister is and just takes it, doesn't even ask anything, just takes it out of her stuff. And later that day, when we picked up the kids, or when my wife picked up the kids, he like full on confronted my wife. It's like, you don't understand what we do at this school or what we do here. And, my wife, God bless her, she's not great at standing up to people. She's not good at confrontation like that, but she, from what she has told me and from what the kids have told me, because they were there, absolutely just shot him down and was just like, no, you don't seem to understand what's going on here. Like, our kids took this into their own hands and did this. So the following day we get an email. I know this is a long story. The following day we get an email from him saying like, first of all, accusing our kids of being liars, that they wrote this, and then accusing my wife and I of writing it for them and giving it to the kids, even though they're the ones who wrote it. They literally did what the school has been trying to teach them how to do, which is to take matters into their own hands, and did things on their own because the school wasn't doing anything about it. And then he has the audacity to say that my wife and I did it. Well, the result is they kicked us out of the school. So in just absolute bafflement, you should read this literal like 7-page response of an email that I wrote to him, just absolutely bashing him. But we're taking this information, by the way, we're taking this information to the state to remove their funding from Step Up, which is like the scholarship program. So they're not going to have any access to that anymore, which is the majority of their money. We also have taken it to local news, and we've started talking to the rest of the parents because the school is terrible at communicating. And I would go into more detail about the stuff that has happened with this kid, about how how he told one of the guides, I mean, this kid is like 10 years old, how he wants to gangbang her, and how they had to have a conversation about that. And our 10-year-old, who has no idea what the hell a gangbang is, had to overhear that and then came home and asked us about that. And there's just a lot going on. Anyways, so we were already going to remove the kids from school. Then they got kicked out for this thing, which is totally not fair to them. The result is we now are no longer bound to this area. So I think we're going to move back to Port St. Lucie. But we have to go back into the housing hunt and the school hunt and all of that fun stuff yet again. Weird jump cut, but I'm back like several hours later to continue recording this because I had to take a break. But the thing with the house stuff is it's very interesting. Like, my wife and I, we really want to buy a house because, man, does it suck to rent. Renting is like a huge waste of money, right? You're just paying somebody else's mortgage. So it'd be way better to be paying our own mortgage and buying off our house, right? So we're kind of in the situation where we're looking at that as a possibility, but because of the market at the moment, because of the inventory and just like all of the stuff going on in the housing market in the United States, things are just really expensive, and rent is just about as expensive, if not a little bit more than it was when we started looking this time last year. So, but you know, to be fair, this time it is way easier to afford a place because of all the Etsy stuff and everything else going on. However, it's the inventory is still really bad, and like we have a very good idea of where we want to take the kids school wise. There's a very good private school down where we were living before in Port St. Lucie, although closer to the coast. Like we were about like, it was a 40-minute drive through town and city, which is kind of funny because it takes an hour, just over an hour, to get to Canaveral from where we're at, just taking the turnpike here in Orlando. So it's, you know, we're not much further from the beach, even though like physically speaking we are way further from the beach than we were back in Port St. Lucie. But I think we would be ending up like much closer to the coast, which ironically is a lot older of a, you know, buildings and whatnot. And having to deal with hurricanes and stuff again is not ideal, but yeah, we really liked that area. In fact, there was a game store, like a board game store, that I loved there. Oh my goodness, I loved going in. All their stuff was like MSRP. It was absolute the highest price that you would find for it, and I could often find things for like $20 or $30 cheaper online. But there was just something fun about going into a physical board game store, browsing, and often buying like paint supplies or brushes or like grass tufts for painting miniatures and whatnot. It was just a lot of fun, and they're actually one of the largest, if not the largest, I think they might be the largest board game selection in South Florida, which was awesome. But they were just like this husband and wife owned, you know, little shop, and I loved going and supporting them when we were living down there. And I didn't actually go in for the first time until after COVID had started, really, and yeah, that was an interesting thing. Actually, it was right before COVID started. I had gone in there for the first time, but I loved going in and supporting them. And it would be really nice to live close to them again, especially with my newest ventures of doing like the 3D printing and whatnot, because I, you know, one of the things that I do for my listings is I would 3D print a mini and paint it up, and then put the pictures up and the like 360-degree video of it up on the listing, and it just makes listings sell so much better because people can see an actual, instead of like a 3D render, they're actually seeing a physical product. They're like, oh, this is the thing, not only printed out but also painted, and it makes a big difference to the just general trust that you have in purchasing a thing like that, especially off of Etsy. So I would actually probably take a good amount of the stuff that I've painted and just go sell it there at a fairly reasonable cost. Like, you know, nothing too high. Just be like, hey, here's the stuff that I've painted. You can take it, and I would also partake in their painting contests that they do every month. And in fun ways, because I feel like I probably would just stomp them, and I don't, and I mean this in like the most humble way that I can. It's not that I'm better than everybody else in that area of painting, but that I think from what I've seen, the people who are entering that painting competition are definitely more novice, and I would only enter to win like once, and then from then on I would enter really weird stuff because like they are like, here's the mini of the month, you could purchase it from us, and then you paint it, and I would do like really weird colors, I think, just to practice different techniques and whatnot. I think it would make it pretty fun as well. Anyway, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to going back down there potentially. Plus, we still have friends down there. We haven't made many friends up here because just not really knowing whether we were going to stay or what we wanted to do. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's nice being close to the airport, being close to things like Disney and whatnot, but you know, it's kind of at the cost of a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, we're on the house hunt once again. And I think that we're probably going to rent for a couple of years. Honestly, we're going to try to lock in like a 2-year lease and then buy from then on, because that gives enough time for the market in the US to kind of change a little bit, whether it's going to go up or down or where it's going to go, because we have access to the veteran loan, which gives us a bunch of cool stuff like a fixed and not just a fixed, but a low interest rate. And then, yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff with that loan that makes it a lot easier to buy a house. So yeah, we have options, and that is kind of the end goal, is to end up purchasing a house. So man, this is going to be a journey. This is the start of that purchasing a house journey, I think, which we will discuss thoroughly on the channel, and I'm sure I'll bring it up in a bunch of videos from here until like 2 years from now. This has been a fairly long supporter vlog, but you know, a lot of stuff happened, and a lot of stuff to catch up on, and just constantly do the normal checks of everything. But which is funny because actually here, let me. You guys don't see this, but I'm opening up YouTube on my other monitor because this video that I put up today of this leveling guy for Diablo Immortal is just going crazy. I put it up, let's see here, about 12 hours ago, or sorry, no, about 24 hours ago. So it's been basically an entire day since this video went out, from the time that I'm recording this, and it's at over 11,000 views. It's like got 44 comments. It has 135 likes at this point, 18 dislikes. That's fine. The dislikes people are just people who don't like Diablo Immortal. That's pretty normal for that stuff. Like there was a point during the day at 10. Let's see here. Yeah, no. At 9 to 10 a.m. it had gotten 762 views. From 10 to 11, it got 972. From 11 to 12, it got 894. And yeah, it's been crushing it. I've gotten over 40 subscribers from that video alone. It's that thing is out of control, which means that, you know what? I'm doubling down. I'm doing more. I'm doing more Immortal stuff over the next few days. So hold on to your butts. With all that said, thank you guys once again for another month of support, for hanging in there as I, just am amazingly overwhelmed with work, which is definitely a blessing for sure. I mean, think about this time last year. I'm looking for work and I can't find anything, and blah, blah, blah. And it's one of those funny things. I had a mentor when I was like in my early 20s, like basically when I started the channel. It's kind of funny how that all aligns, but I remember sitting down. We went to Chili's, which is like, if you're not from the US, it's like a crappy chain restaurant. The food is okay. And we were sitting there for lunch, and it was at the time that I was debating what to do for school. I was like, I was no longer doing game design school. I had moved back from Florida at the time to Nevada. I was like, I want to go to, get a degree, but I didn't know what to do. And he told me, he was like, sometimes in order to get things moving, you just need to get started. And he said, think of it like a car. Life is like driving a car in a lot of ways. It's a lot easier to steer a car when it's moving forward. It's a lot harder, especially without, power steering. It's like a lot harder to steer where you're going if you're actually just kind of sitting still. I was like, oh, that's really wise, right? So, and then he piggybacked on that, and he said, oftentimes you won't know the reasons you had to go through things until you get to the point. It's like a hill. It's like a mountain. You're climbing this mountain. You're traveling up a mountain, and you get to a point where you're at a peak, and you look backwards, and you go, "Oh, I see that path that I needed to take in order to get to the point where I'm at." Because if I didn't take that path, I would have ended up somewhere completely different. I would have been on that mountain over there, but I'm on this one right now. And like the whole job with PlayGig is kind of like that. Because, man, that whole situation ended so poorly, and it really sucked because I really liked that job, and you guys all know that story. But the thing is, during the process of that, the CEO, the guy who is in big trouble. He wanted a 3D print done of like the main character that they were like branding the game with. And he was like, do you know anything about 3D? He's like, I know you paint miniatures. Do you know anything about 3D printing? It's like, no, I don't know nothing, right? And I had to take like a 3 or 4 day period to do a bunch of research on 3D printing and find a person who could 3D print what we wanted and get it supported and send it off to us and get it painted and everything. And yeah, I took that time and got all that done. And I would never had thought about starting my own Etsy shop 3D printing stuff if I hadn't gone through that and considered, you know, what, like, because I went through that and I went, man, I kind of like this. And this is something that I feel like I can do. And I'm making more money a month now than I was working for them just doing 3D printing. So it's kind of funny how to think like, you know, I'm at a peak at the moment, or I'm at least approaching the summit, and I can turn around and I can go, man, if I had never worked for them, I would have never have gotten interested in 3D printing the way that I have. And I would have never started the Etsy shop, and I would never have been in the position that I am now monetarily to be a lot more flexible with everything going on. And I wouldn't be, you know, so blessed with extra work to do where I'm staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning. It's crazy how that all works out. It's crazy. Anyways, thank you guys for your support once again. I'm going to enjoy my day at Busch Gardens with the kids. By the time you guys see this, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a bunch of roller coasters there. The kids are just absolutely scared of roller coasters. So we'll see if we can ease them into it, because there's some nice ones for them, which would be nice because I want people to ride roller coasters with me. Although the baby loves, you know, any kind of feeling like that. So I'm pretty sure she's going to end up being my roller coaster buddy when she gets older, but that's like at least 8 years from now. So with all that being said, again, thank you for your support, and we shall see you all next time.